What's going on? It's Dapper Don. Let me be the first to welcome you to episode 5 of a new show called Wassup, Cardinals, the show where we do whatever we want. Topics range from racism in the 70s to the demise of modern dating and everything in between. Heck, we may even invite you to participate. So if you want a show where you'll never know what comes next, tune in Wednesdays at 4 p.m. here on WCRD 91.3. And now, firstly, a bit of good news for the show. We have got ourselves a Spotify. I am currently in the process of gathering that information, but new episodes will be up on Spotify Thursdays at 4, along with the archived audio on YouTube. So be sure to be on the lookout for that and to follow both accounts when I get that information out. Now, let's see what's up with Muncie. Cardinals drop marathon bout to Bowling Green to open MAC play. This is an article by Ball State Daily. This is by Daniel Keene, Kehn, written on September 27th, 2024. Ball State women's volleyball started Mid-American Conference MAC season play with a marathon 5-set thriller against Bowling Green tonight that saw 36 tie scores and 13 lead changes. Despite taking the first set by 5 points and pushing for a 5-set after going 2-1, the Cardinals, 7-5-0-1 MAC, fell to the Falcons, 25-20, 18-25, 28-30, 25-17, 11-15. I thought we had moments, we did some good things, but we had way too many moments of just not playing in a mature way. Head coach Kelly Miller Phillips said, there were too many moments we were trying to do too much and overplaying. I think part of that is just reminding ourselves, play confident and do basic things. All right. And in more sports news, we've got Yorktown defeats Shelbyville 33-0 in Mud Game by Zach Carter, also written on September 27th, 2024. Yorktown, Indiana. Rain, rain, and yes, more rain. That was what the Yorktown Tigers and fellow Hoosier Heritage Conference team, Shelbyville Golden Bears, had to face in this evening's contest at Yorktown High School. With the Tigers being the only Delaware County and HHC team to have a grass field, the elements were felt by both contestants on every level. However, the Tigers believe it aided their chances. I felt like a little kid again, Senior Wilson Webster said. It gives us the advantage in a game like that. Yorktown, who was coming off of a HHC defeat to Newcastle, found the win column by defeating Shelbyville 33-0. I told our guys that they will remember this game 30 years from now, Tigers head coach Mike Wilhelm said. You're going to talk about the game. You're going to talk about the mud game and playing in Hurricane Helene. All right. And now, let's see. What else we got in news today? This is an article written by David Moore. West Dell goes scoreless in 36-0 loss to rival Monroe Central. By David Moore, September 27th, 2024. Gaston, Indiana. On a storm-riddled Friday evening, two rivals in West Dell, 2-3, and Monroe Central, 4-1, hit the field to play in the Harvest Helmet Classic, a contest that has been played since 2011. The conditions pre-game were less than ideal as heavy rain and strong winds persisted throughout the contest. Despite the conditions, the game continued with the Warriors seeking their third straight win. Last season, the Golden Bears and Warriors faced off twice. The most important of the matchups was in sectionals in a contest in which the Gold and Brown were victorious 43-34. West Dell had hopes of getting revenge after the heartbreaking end to their season in 2023. All right. And let's see now here. Ball State takes their first win in conference play against Akron. This is the last article we're going to read here. This was written, I don't see a date here, and I don't see an author, so if you wrote this article, I do apologize. The Cardinals scored early in the game against Akron, 5-3-2-0-3-0 MAC, sending them home with a 1-0 win. This leaves Ball State 6-4 with a 1-2-0 Mid-American Conference record. Akron left with their third recorded loss in conference play this season. Junior midfielder Addie Chester scored in the 6th minute of the game with an assist from graduate student forward Avery Fenchel and junior forward Emily Roper. This made Chester's 6th goal of the season and first conference goal as a Cardinal. All right, that's all for Muncie News today. Now on to today's topic, the fighting game mindset. Now, let's just cut to brass tacks here. A lot of people go into fighting games with the absolute just wrong mindset. And by fighting games, I mean games like Smash Bros, Injustice, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, the real fighting games. Not anything on the Wii. Not Wii Play, not Mario Kart. Those are not the games that I'm talking about. These are games that require skill, precision, strategizing, and a whole lot of patience. These are games that require you to dang near form a personal connection with your character. In Street Fighter, for example, you can't just jump in and play as anyone. You have to choose which character fits your personality type or you will get trounced. And this is just one of the many misconceptions people have about fighting games. That's why today's episode will be one devoted to showing you how to actually become a boss at fighting games. And to be honest, with some of the tips and tricks that we'll learn here today, you could absolutely apply them to other areas of your life. Hence why this episode applies to more than just gamers. Now, to illustrate this concept properly, I'm going to tell you the story of the first time I played any sort of fighting game seriously and the sort of anime character-esque journey that I took to be one of the top fighters in my group. Firstly, the person that trained me is actually someone who I consider to be my best friend. He's one of those quiet types who really won't say too much unless it's important or beneficial. We'll call him Orochi to fit the weeb theme we're going with. Now, we'd always sort of been friends, knew him since high school, or actually middle school, going on 9, 10 years of friendship. But we never really grew closer than, school stuff until about 5 years ago when I went to his house one evening after work. It was winter, but as is typical with Indiana weather, there was hardly any snow on the ground. It was freezing cold, though. I do remember that. I walked, hands and feet growing numb and tingly, to his house, not knowing what it even looked like. To my surprise, his house sat atop a giant hill and was huge in its own right, with a basement, several back rooms, and even a patio area with a bridge-like structure leading up to the main entrance. As soon as I walked in and smelled the fresh, warm scent of food cooking in this icy cold, I immediately felt at home, more than I ever had at anyone else's house besides my own. I cordially introduced myself to his mother and grandmother, and my friend and I then sat down to watch some anime. The anime itself was great, but it felt like there was something missing from the equation. We hadn't spoken to each other in quite a while by this point, so there needed to be a way for us to connect in a stronger sort of way. He seemed to have picked up on this vibe too, because not 30 minutes into the hangout, he'd already brought out his like new PS4. Mind you, this was 5 years ago. The PS4 was pretty recent. Oh man, if I could just go back 5 years, honestly. And he hooked up his PS4 and he was talking about some game called Injustice. I didn't know too much about the game at the time. To give you some context, I had really only played it once at a camping trip I took when I was a few years younger and never touched the game again. Never brought up the game again. It never made its way into my purview. And it's like I never really played fighting games in earnest up until that moment, so I really didn't know why he wanted us to play it in the first place. I, like some of you, thought that it was just like, oh, those distracting games where you button mash and beat people. Oh, big deal. But that was when I realized that I was making mistake number one. Telling him that I didn't know and couldn't get the hang of fighting games like that. Because you see, I told him I'm not good at those games. I'm not good at those games. I can't play those games. Those games elude me. I don't think I'd be able to get the button combos. I was just going off all type of reasons why I couldn't do it and why I didn't know, blah 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 blah. But he completely ignored my lack of confidence. He finished the game setup and handed me the second controller. Before I knew it, the screen glowed dark blue as the title screen proudly blared. It had been a while since I'd held a video game controller, and to tell you how old I am, the last controller I held was the Wii. That was actually true. And by last controller I'd held, it meant the last controller I'd held that was mine was the Wii. I didn't have any games at home. But he, I told him this as well, and he still ignored it and just deftly navigated to the character select screen. I don't know how to play any of these guys, I remember saying. Just choose someone, he said, to the point, like I don't him to be. I then chose my character, and as soon as the match started, even after looking at the combos on the menu, I got whooped. I mean, that was expected. And see, Injustice has this thing where you can attack someone and push them into stage transitions, which are elaborate cutscenes that take about as much health as an ultimate attack. Yeah, dang near every second he was getting off a stage transition on me, in addition to his regular attacks and ultimates, which he knew how to do in rapid succession. Combo after combo after stage transition after combo after ultimate. Every round he beat me, barely even dealing with me barely even dealing chip damage to him. We played for hours and I was growing slightly frustrated. I don't know, man. I'm just not good at this, I whined. Keep going, he said in response. After yet another 100,000 rounds of him kicking my black behind, I bid him adieu and went home. I didn't think much of it. I didn't even think I'd see him or touch another fighting game for quite a while. However, little did I know that a fire was lit in me that day. That night, the game was in my dreams. I was envisioning combo strings and maneuvers. Totally true, by the way. This is a completely true story. I know it sounds ridiculous, but this is true. I was replaying my earlier battles in my head and deciphering which characters I could and couldn't get the hang of. Some might call that an obsession. Some might call that insanity. But when I told him this over text the next day, you know what he called it? The beginning. Now, listeners, every story has an antagonist or a villain. And during this time, we had another friend who wasn't as good as Orochi. We'll call him M. This friend wasn't as good as Orochi at these games. To tell you the truth, he actually got his butt whooped worse than I did, but he'd had more experience in the game, so naturally I thought that he was better than me at the game. And it didn't help with the way he bragged about being able to play every fighting game we played. He was just like, oh, I'm not even using he's one of those, I'm not even using my full power people, you know, those, oh, I love blockers, I love this, and just general disrespect, right? This guy did not respect the game, did not respect my ability, my ability to play, my not wanting to, he didn't respect any of that. And so I would play against him and lose, and it would fuel this level of cockiness within him. And Orochi did not like this very much. No, not one bit. So that's when the training sessions got more intense. I started going over his house dang near daily, I remember. And we would spend time in the quote unquote combo schools that these games had, where you had a character and you learned all their combos, including the really difficult ones. If you've played fighting games, you know what I'm talking about. We would run towers. Yes, that was a thing in Mortal Kombat and in Injustice and in a couple of other in a couple of other those side scroller fighters. Um, we would run gauntlets, just CPUs, high level CPUs. We would just fight together, and we would spend hours doing this. My fingers started hurting. Like it felt like my fingers were gonna break at one point. We were playing so much because we were training just that hard. So, you know, and because whenever we fought, I would lose to him, I wouldn't see my improvements, but he would. He would see me getting off moves. He would see me outsmarting him in certain maneuvers. He would see me predicting certain things that I would not see because I was focused on I'm still losing. And so was M. Because whenever Orochi told M of my progress, M would always be like, okay, but is he still bad? That sort of thing. So, cut to the next time I play with M over at M's house. And let's just say that through all that training and M doing no training in preparation for this match, I stomped him. I stomped him. He got smacked very badly. There were a couple points where I had started to predict his moves so much that I had let him get off some combos just because I felt bad. And when I started beating him like that, he definitely didn't like that. And so him and I would play round after round after round because M's ego was bruised by this point. So round after round after round, and I was kicking his butt in the same way Orochi kicked my butt. And that felt good to me. But like anybody who secures a win like that at a competitive game, it became aware to me just how much I didn't know. Because when I played against Orochi, he began playing more aggressively, more viciously, more strategically. And I realized the next level of my training was to begin. And that, friends, is why I can't get enough of this stuff. Because it's competitive. You know, you're learning more about yourself, you're learning more about your character, you're establishing a connection within yourself, and you're realizing that even victories like that aren't enough. If any of you have ever played sports, then you feel something similar. Like, okay, I've beaten this team, but it's not enough. I'm not done. But I love the fact that I'm not done because if I was done, there was no point in doing it in the first place. So that story right there perfectly illustrates the main rule of sort of playing any fighting game. You have to be open to getting smacked. You have to be ready to get served. You have to be ready to get your patootie kicked. Doesn't matter how good or bad you think you are, it can always be improved with training. And an important part of training is being prepared to lose, to make mistakes, to grow. Learning how to play a combo heavy fighting game is, like I said, like learning how to play a sport. It's a grind. You have to be willing to go through round after round after round of losses before you even get one win. And even when you win, if you get good enough, you'll be mad that you didn't win as flawlessly as you wanted to. Like how I had to realize there was still more to do. It takes a great deal of willpower to play a game, lose countless times, and end up wanting to play more. So if you're not someone who likes to lose, you'd best not even hop on the sticks. And that goes for anything in life. If you're up for a sales position and can't handle rejection, find another job. If you're debating someone and can't handle even the remote possibility of them actually being right about anything, quit the debate. You can't approach things with that fragile of a mindset. And see, I've actually since played against people who can't handle losing. There were more people than just M who couldn't handle losing. For example, I once played a guy who, once he lost enough times, started whining about how we kept beating him and ran to his room to pout about it in front of his longtime girlfriend. Oh, yeah, real manly, acting like a baby in front of a girl you're supposed to be impressing. Give this guy a Man of the Year award, why don't you? I'm serious, folks. People be out here embarrassing themselves and destroying their reputations because they can't take losses. Don't be that guy. Now, the next thing you should be on the lookout for when attempting any fighting game is to always fight fair. This one involves actually learning the rules of the house you're playing in. This means that if you're playing One's Justice 2 and the character Endeavor has been banned for regular use, it doesn't matter if you use Endeavor at your other friend's house or if you yourself don't think he's as broken as he is. You're not fighting according to your other friend's rules. You're fighting according to the rules in front of you. It's all about creating that fair match. If you don't beat your opponent on their terms, then have you really beat them? Within reason, of course. And by the way, quick aside, for those of you who don't know, One's Justice 2, if you haven't heard of it, is a pretty decent My Hero Academia arena-style fighting game in a similar vein as Ninja Storm, if any of you know that. My only real problem with the game is that some of its balancing, like how you can beat anyone in the game with Bakugo by just spamming that explosion wall he does, uh, you know, you can cheese the game with Bakugo. You really can, because nobody can get near you when he puts up that explosion wall, because it always hits, and the hitbox is insane. But anywho, a fair fight is the cornerstone of any battle. If you don't beat your opponent on their terms, fair terms, of course, then you just didn't beat them at all. You may run and tell your friends that you won. You may even believe genuinely that you won, but you did not. This segues nicely into another vital tool to take with you in any fighting game: character selection. How many characters should you get good with? What type of characters should you choose? How do you master a character in a fighting game? Well, unfortunately, there is no one answer for this. Some say that tanks, fighters that can take a lot of damage before flinching or falling victim to combos, are the best. Some say that rushdown characters, fighters who are fast and tend to rely on confusing the opponent with quick moves that deal a lot of damage, are the best. And some even say that you should get good with the worst character in your roster as a way to shock your friends. I've even said that on a couple of occasions. Approaches may vary. For example, the characters I always go with are characters that are most like me in personality, battle hungry, determined, sort of tanky, but not too tanky. You'll see. If you ever play me in a fighting game, like in Injustice, one of my mains is Blue Beetle. Right? He's kind of tanky, but he's kind of not tanky at the same time. You'll kind of get the feel for it. It's hard to put into words. But for me, I always choose 3 characters who most closely match my traits, get really good at them, and then if I choose to expand my collection, I do. If not, I've got 3 characters that I can play. And there are a lot of folks who will tell you a lot of different things. At the end of the day, you have to do what works for you while allowing for a fair fight. If that's anything mentioned above, or even something I didn't cover, then it is what it is. The last thing you want to do is get smacked when you weren't even playing at your best. Trust me, it feels better to lose knowing you gave it your best effort than to lose when you didn't even get a chance to try. Now, for the final part of today's episode, we're going to take a look at some articles detailing and expanding upon the points I made above, as well as adding things that I may have missed. So this first article up is a Steel Series article. Let me pull it up real quick. Perfect. How to Get Good at Fighting Games by Luke Ciuti. It's time to get good. Everybody wants to beat their friends, but we don't always want to put in the work. Here's some quick tips on how to wreck your buddies and start on the path to greatness. See? Anime character-esque journey. Like everybody views it as that. Anybody who plays these games views it as that. Looking to beat your friends without much effort? I can't promise that there will be no actual effort involved, but I'll try my best. As a fighting game competitor of many years and briefly a coach for a side gig, I've had a lot of experience mentoring other players on how to play my characters or how to approach certain matchups. General fighting game advice is a bit vague, as each series lives by its own rules. However, having good fundamentals and a mindset go a long way no matter if you play as Ryu, Scorpion, or Kirby. First off, mashing is fun, but it only gets you so far. Button mashing. Mashing means pressing buttons as fast as you can without much thought. While a masher versus masher might go either way, you'll quickly lose to anyone else who isn't one. Me, I play with a combination of pressing the buttons fast, without much thought, but also kind of already knowing what I want to do. So that's my approach. But this article may even disprove that. Who knows? While this is a fun way to fight against your friends, you'll want to let go of this habit if you want to get better, since it prevents you from using better tools your character has. And it does. Because if you're pressing a button that's not a combination, then somebody who knows the actual combination is going to smack you down. Is your friend mashing on you endlessly and it's incredibly annoying? Well, here's the one trick your friends will absolutely hate: blocking. Oh, man. To clarify the story about M is a button masher. M kind of knows what he's doing, but he definitely mashes buttons when he starts to lose to do anything in his power. Like, there will be cutscenes of ultimates that he's involved in that he's still mashing buttons, and you can see him visibly doing it. Yeah, no. That's not how you play those games. The fact that you don't know when to stop mashing buttons means that you aren't playing with any thought. In most games, after you block attacks, your opponent is left at a disadvantage because the combo ends and there's an opening. This means it's time for you to launch your offense back. Similarly, whenever you get knocked down, your first thought should be to block, as your opponent can land attacks on you right as you're getting up. Those are called wake-up attacks. So your first attempt at getting better should be to let go of mashing and start thinking about how you can use your character's tools to your advantage, which leads us to your next step. Get to know your characters or your mechanics. So Orochi, the way Orochi trained me was looking at the combos. In any game you go to, it doesn't matter how many times you've played it, doesn't matter how long it's been since you've played it, look at your character's combos. You'll need to do that until you burn their combos into your brain and know exactly what strings you're starting off with, what strings you're ending with, what are combo enders, what are specials, what are some ultimates, what are some options. We mainly train like this in Street Fighter, but of course, games like Dragon Ball FighterZ and games like the new Sparking Zero game that's coming out here soon, which, fingers crossed, I am definitely waiting for that, mainly because of the what if scenario creator. Ninja Storm, like, it's very important to make sure that even if all the characters have the same controls but different attacks, to look at what those controls are and burn them into your little brainy box. Because the last thing you want to do is stop a match because you're looking at the combos because you're not well versed on your character. And I mean serious matches, not friend matches. I mean online matches. You don't want to. I mean, some games you can't even look at the combo screen while you're online fighting. That's how much they expect you to know your character and the moves that you're doing. You can't even look at the combo screen. But in general, if you're playing a serious match, there's no time to stop and look at the combos. You need to focus on beating your opponent. If you don't know anything more than button mashing, then you probably shouldn't be playing that character. And if you're doing that with every character, then you should probably learn how to play the game. Now, the first step is simply to get to know your character, the article continues. This is best done in training mode. Get a feel for every button in piece. Most attacks serve a specific purpose. Some aim to get you closer to the opponent. Some are meant to be long-range hits. Some can function as an anti-air, a move designed to beat out an opponent who is jumping in. Learning your character's special moves is essential next. Those are your typical projectiles, etc. Think of Scorpion's "get over here," for example, or Link's boomerang throw. Sometimes the motion to execute them can be complicated, but in many newer games there are shortcuts. For example, in Street Fighter VI, you do have a lot of shortcuts in the modern mode of character play, which makes the controls easier and makes the combos easier to get off. Some characters play well in this mode, some characters don't. If you're playing Zangief, he does not play very well in modern. If you're playing a character like Kimberly or something like that, then she does, or Luke does. Like, the newer characters tend to play better, the older characters tend to play better in Classic. But either way, you got to know what those special moves are to use them in any mode. Because and you got to know what they're for. Because some characters have special moves that are specifically designed to be counterattacks that deal massive damage. But if you're button mashing and accidentally getting off that counterattack, you can make the mistake of hitting that counterattack at the wrong time and leaving yourself open, because counterattacks have a lag period. Many games also offer a challenge mode, the article continues. Style combos where you have to perform increasingly difficult sequences. That's a good place to start without having to do any outside research. And it is. Now, you may not get through the challenge mode, but if you know a lot of the basics, you can beat anybody. For example, in one of the newest fighting games, DNF Duel, all the special moves for the characters can be done by pressing one button in a direction, similar to Smash Bros. Or Multiverses. Multiverses, the Warner Brothers fighting game with the Powerpuff Girls, Bugs Bunny, all those places, all those characters, and all those places from them. Yeah, it's a good game. You should really dive into it when you get the chance. You can also do moves the traditional way, which gives you slightly better super meter regeneration, but if you're a beginner, that's not something to worry about. Most fighting games also feature tutorial that goes over every mechanic in the game, commonly called system mechanics. These govern many aspects of the fight. For example, what ways are there to defend? Can you spend meter to pull off a counter move? How do you stand up? How do you use throws? When is your most powerful move available? These differ a lot in games, but it's important to know them. Like I said, get to know how to play the game, get to know your specific characters, get to know all of that. Don't just sit there and aimlessly button mash, and then when you lose, throw a fit. Speaking of, the article continues, losing is okay. Once you start getting a handle on how to play your characters in the game, you might start beating your friends, but sometimes you might find yourself losing a lot still, depending on your range of opponents. I found myself, even after learning the buttons, still losing a lot. You might feel disappointed with yourself, the article continues, or feel that by now you should be a champ in the game. And that's rarely the case. Whether you're just starting out or have been playing for a while, losses meet every player from zero to pro. The best thing for you to do mentally is to accept losing as part of the process and learn from it. The biggest lessons for any fighting game player come from the losses, not the wins. You have to be prepared to take L's. Online, with friends, to a doggone computer. You have to be prepared to take L's. Because it is in those L's that you're always sitting and thinking, oh, I should have done this. Next time I'll do that. Next time I'll do this. Okay, he beat me. Now I know his play style. Here's how I can improve and beat him. That's how you learn how to grow. Ask anybody who's played a fighting game like against their siblings and wins all the time. Would they be able to stand a chance against a champion player? 9 times out of 10, no. Because they win all the time. So there's no need for them to grow. There's nothing that they can learn because they win all the time. It's not like they're going to unlock a hidden ability to beat somebody that they're already beating. The article continues. The best way to grow as a fighting game player is by playing people better than you. You might sit down with someone really good and lose to them 20 times in a row. You might not even score a round. And that's okay, because maybe in the 21st match, you'll at least get 1 KO. And then at some point, too. Again, that's how my journey went. It started with me not even dealing chip damage to Orochi. Then before you know it, I got his health halfway down. Then I knocked him out in the first round. And he still kept beating me. But then it started to get to the point where I got him down to pretty low health in the second round. And then before you know it, actually beat him. Even though I had 1 HP too, I still beat him. It's very easy to feel beaten up by losses, sad or angry. I think the best way to manage that feeling is by adjusting your attitude coming in. Think about having fun as first and foremost, and consider, what am I going to learn from my opponent? What do I need to work on? And again, this is losing in anything. Do not just lose and then freak out and then never do it again. You have to go through multiple attempts. You have to sit down and say, okay, I took an L here. I took a very fat L here. How do I improve? How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I change this? How do I rearrange that? That is what losing is meant to do. It is not meant to be a tool to make you feel ashamed. Sure, you can, but that's not the whole point of it. Reiterating on growing by facing better players. The article continues in the section, play different people. Reiterating on growing by facing better players, if you want to get better at fighting games, you need to step outside of the circle of immediate friends. This is why Orochi and I often would play online too, so that we could get the feel for how people were playing the game, those that were good, those that were toxic, those that were cheating. That way we knew how to adjust our play style. And how did that happen? By us taking constant L's online before we got good in our private and then going back out. This might mean fighting characters that you've never played against before, which is a good thing, the article continues. A big part of fighting games is having knowledge, not just of your own character, but at least knowing the basics about every other one. What kind of tools do they have to counter my character? How do their special moves work? Those are essential to know. There are 3 ways of getting more opponents. Go online. You can fight random people in network mode. Enter online communities. Search for the main Discord for the fighting game and join it. It should be easy to get matched up to a friendly opponent and ask for their advice. Join offline events. This could mean going to events in your community. And once you devote the time, you will be rewarded. And the article continues with this: devote the time and get rewarded. Everything above works toward making you a better warrior. But being proficient in a fighting game doesn't necessarily mean you have to devote hours upon hours. It's more about how you spend your time. Orochi and I now play fighting games sort of every other weekend. And while it could be very easy to get rusty, we spend our time very well on those fighting games, training and again, playing until our fingers hurt, or until we unlock something hidden within the character, or until we've graduated mains. And by graduating mains, I mean going from one character who has a certain playstyle to one character who uses that playstyle better. Like, we will do that for hours upon hours upon hours upon hours. I think one point we even went like 16 hours in a weekend of just nothing but that, yeah, it's about how you spend your time. The best thing about studying fighting games is that most of it is active learning. I can sit here and tell you how to play one all you want, but it's not until you play a game against me that you'll see what I'm talking about. So now, you can start setting small goals for yourself. For example, this week I'll learn how to deal with Kirby. You can search for someone who plays that character, identify difficult situations, and replicate them in training mode. Nowadays, pretty much every fighting game has a robust training mode, which offers simple ways to recreate a situation. You can either record a training dummy to use a move, or there might be settings to make it act on specific triggers after blocking something or getting up, for example. The best fighting game players have a response for specific situations because they have encountered and dissected them beforehand, which means that this is why button mashing puts you at such a disadvantage, because you're not looking at the situations you're encountering and dissecting them and figuring out, okay, this person's going to get up with an attack, this person's going to do this person has this advantage here. You're just button mash, triangle, oh, X square, triangle, oh, X square. Like, you're not you're not thinking. You're not thinking, okay, this person usually gets me because I'm not blocking, so let me block first before I do anything. And when you start to strategize like that, that is how you start to beat people. And as mentioned above, a lot of learning occurs as you're playing. So don't feel like you have to bog down with notes or extensive studying. And that's the end of that article. And now, I think we have time. We're going to go to this article by Reset Era. Realizing what I should have years ago. It's time to stop trying to play fighting games. This article is a little bit different than what the title suggests. Well, actually, it is a comment. It's like comment. It's a comment thread. It's not really. It's a forum. It's not really an article. Um, this is by forum member TBM24 of Reset Era. In my opinion, if you want to last long playing a fighting game competitively in some form or fashion, you really need to internalize the good game, go next mentality. You'll lose and keep losing. That's okay. It's okay to lose. I have some friends I genuinely beat maybe 3 times in a 50-match set. Still have a ton of fun trying to beat them. In 50 matches, no match is the same, even if you lost them all. Do you understand? Right? Like, there are infinite ways that you could lose, just as there are infinite ways that you could win. You have to be okay with losing. You have to be okay with getting off the sticks. You cannot be one of those people that as soon as they take a loss, oh, I don't even want to play no more. Blah, 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 nope. If you're trying to play any fighting game, you do, just because it looks cool doesn't necessarily mean that these principles don't apply. Sumami, Tsumami, oh god, usernames, of Reset Era, states, nobody started out good. You have to just not get upset when you lose and just try to glean any kind of info that you can. It's all learning. If losing makes you mad, then yeah, I mean, it's not really good. And you should probably play something that doesn't make you upset. It's like, yeah, losing can be frustrating, just as it is with any game. But if it makes you mad, like to the point where you're storming out and creating chaos in front of family members and causing a whole bunch of crap, then you probably should not be playing that game. And you probably shouldn't be playing fighting games in general. All right, let's see here. Somebody who's comparing it to a martial art. I recently got into jiu-jitsu and am getting my butt handed to me by nearly everyone. And it is very discouraging. But every day, like someone said, you learn things that you should do and not do. The invisible XP bar. But I feel like this quote is very apt for fighting games that I came across for jujutsu. You can replace grappling slash BJJ with fighting games, and you get the point. Like Takedo said, it's something special when you can get to that mastery. Maybe basic mastery is Diamond to Street Fighter 6. The system felt most appropriate in matching like-skilled opponents. So basically what he's saying in this is that, like actual sports, like I said before, you have to learn how to play. And how do you learn? By losing. If you're not comfortable with losing, don't play. But yeah, no, that's that. Let's see if we could just get through a couple more here. This one is by Medium. How do I learn to play fighting games proactively? And I think this is the last one we have time for. So let's take a look here. The article was written by Patrick Miller, August 1st, 2022, 2 years ago. And he was responding to a question that was asked to him by somebody that wrote in. Hi, OTA. Thanks for writing in. This is an excellent question that can be tackled in many ways. So I'll write this with an eye towards all the different ways I've seen people work through this before, and we'll see if any of this lands for you. People usually come to fighting games with a predisposition towards either proactive or reactive play. In other words, whether you like to look at the screen and then do something, or do something and then look at the screen, you'll have to learn how to do both. Fortunately, the plateau you're facing is fairly common, especially in games like Street Fighter, where the first lesson you learn is don't jump, work on your anti-airs. You can get a decent amount of mileage just doing things like constantly anti-airing, safe jumping DPs and punishing unsafe moves on block. That's all good, but none of that is really playing much of a two-player game. Eventually, you're going to run into players who don't do stuff that is easily beaten on reaction, so you have to learn how to force people to do stuff that you can beat. Orochi is very good at this. I hate to keep glazing on this guy, but he knows what he's doing. He knows how to get you to make a certain move so that he can then respond in kind. And this could be baiting you, this could be blocking weirdly, this could be ducking when he should have been jumping. Like, he'll do something to make you think that you're safe and then hit you with that attack. The specifics of how and when and why you do this depends on the game and the character. So instead of just listening to me, I'd recommend looking up some match videos to see how good players force action. And there is one player that you should probably look at as far as Mortal Kombat and Injustice goes, Sonic Fox. Look him up on YouTube. If you want to see what I'm talking about in action, players like Sonic Fox and Sonic Fox himself are exactly where you need to go. Those are the go-to. Those are the standard. I get a lot of mid-low level fighting game players, the article continues, who proudly tell me that they like to zone people out and win from range. And I totally get this. Keeping someone out feels good. Now, here's the thing about zoning. If you're a zoner, remember that there will still be an opponent that gets close to you. If you don't have any backup plan for when they get close to you, then you should probably not be a zoner. You should probably be working on those combos. Forcing people to run into your pokes and projectiles and anti-airs while you calmly dispense pain from your preferred position is a great way to feel smart and cool while playing a fighting game. There isn't a fighting manga out there that doesn't have some kind of impossibly cool genius who spends 3 episodes just grinding down the hot-headed protagonist into a dead stop. And if you're still getting used to the speed of fighting games, playing at mid-screen and further ranges is generally more comfortable because everything at that range is easier to react to than up-close situations where you're often forced to make strike throw guesses and you can't easily get overwhelmed by the pace. I started my competitive fighting game career by playing Capcom vs. SNK 2 and Marvel vs. Capcom 2 in Northern California, a region known for calm and measured neutral play, and that kind of play style felt incredibly satisfying to get good at because it feels like the opponent is just slower than you. However, that kind of play style also meant that Capcom vs. SNK 2 tournament finals took forever. And Marvel vs. Capcom 2 matches involved listening to two Storms screaming, "Oh, oh, oh, oh," as they flew to the top of the screen while whiffing HPs to safely build meter for 90 seconds. Make no mistake, zoning play requires skill and can be very exciting to watch, but it often doesn't leave the best first impression on people who are interested in seeing if they'd like the game, or on new players who don't yet understand how to beat zoning and are at risk of simply giving up and calling the game crap instead of learning how to deal with it. So, yeah, it's like you can be a zoner if you want to, and that's a very skilled level of play, but you need to know how to react to when somebody gets up in your face and is ready to do something to you. Because you can shoot as many bullets as you want as Deadshot and Injustice for example. But if you don't know how to quickly grab your opponent and throw them back out of range for you to shoot more bullets, then you're going to be cooked as soon as someone strolls up to you who can dodge all those bullets. But anywho, that's all we had time for today, and that's all for today's show. I want to thank all of you, wonderful people, for tuning in. This would not be possible without your support. If you have any business questions, feel free to email me at don.piper@bsu.edu. Be sure to follow me and the show on Instagram at DapperDon1012 and DapperDon's Wassup Cardinals. Follow me on Facebook, if any of you still use that, at DapperDon. And if you'd like to secure a guest spot for next week's episode, or just let me know your thoughts on today's episode, you can text the show's hotline, 765-245-7957. The archived audio of today's show will most definitely be up on YouTube tomorrow at 4. And you can subscribe to Dapper Don 1012 on YouTube so that you never miss a beat. And also, I'll have the Spotify details out shortly. And do make sure to tune in next Wednesday at 4 for our next topic, something a little bit more interesting, the United Nation of Islam. Bye-bye.